And in the Chan and Zen tradition, for tonight I'll just use the word Chan because the tradition that I trained in is the Chinese Zen tradition, or it's the ancestor to Japanese Zen Buddhism. It developed in China, and now, of course, it's developing here in the West or all over the world. But there are slight cultural differences, and there are also differences in how the methods are used. So I'll use the word Chan. In Chan Buddhism, which is based on Mahayana Buddhism, the teachings that come from the Buddhist discourses, which are categorized in the Mahayana tradition, which is, we could say, a later development of Buddhism. This Mahayana means great vehicle, and it refers to being a vehicle or an approach to wakefulness, which is great in that we try to have a very broad mindset so that we're not just practicing for ourselves. We're not just practicing for the sake of our own well being, but this broad mindset is for the sake of everyone, all society, and even extending to animals. If humans are wakeful and we live careful, mindful lives, all living beings benefit. So, this is the meaning of this great vehicle. It's a compassionate, it emphasizes compassion in this way of practice. In Mahayana teachings, and especially in the Chan teachings, which, if you want to learn more about Chan teachings, the source of them, you can find a lot in what's called the Platform Sutra, the Liu Tzu Tanjing. Have you folks heard of that? Okay. So this is the sixth ancestor teacher in the Chan tradition. He expressed the Mahayana teachings in a very simple and accessible way. And he often pointed out that our nature, our our true nature is actually pure. The Chinese is 本性清净. What does that mean? What does it mean that we have a pure nature? It just means that although at the moment we may experience a lot of troubles, a lot of emotional afflictions, difficulties in our lives, and a lot of stress and anxieties that maybe we don't know how to deal with all the time. Despite that, this is our experience. This meaning of purity is that actually we can be free from all of this. Even the moment that we're suffering a lot, we don't have to. We don't have to continue to suffer because our true nature is actually free from all of this. Even when we feel terrible, miserable, and even if you felt helpless or hopeless, at that very moment, this teaching reminds us that we can be free from all of this. We can be free from our emotional attachments, which is always being obsessed with the things we like or dislike. And we can also be free from our conceptual attachments, which are the views and opinions that we hold really tightly, which, because of holding so tightly to our views and opinions, we find ourselves in a lot of conflict, often with other people, often in the midst of communication, because we're so fixated on my view is right and your view is wrong. We experience a lot of conflict, right? Am I alone, or is this universal? We may even experience conflict with the people that we live with. The people we love the most, we may actually experience the most conflict, which is interesting. But how does this make any sense? Why would our nature be pure if actually from moment to moment we suffer and we experience conflict? Well, it's true that this is our experience. but it's reminding us that we are free at heart. Or we could say at heart we're wise. We can be wise and free. And why is that? How does this really make sense? How is our mind pure when at this very moment it's filled with so much conflict and so much emotional disturbance? Well, the idea of purity is based on the idea of what's called emptiness. Have you heard of that term? It's often one of the most confusing terms in Buddhism. It sounds very negative. It sounds like it's devaluing everything. But the word emptiness means that all of this conflict, all of our emotional and conceptual attachments, they themselves are empty of any fixed nature. All of the anger that we experience, all of the conflict that we feel in the moment when we're, let's say, in a fight, it's actually empty. Why? Because the fight can be over, right? If anger wasn't empty, we'd always be angry. Or if fear wasn't empty, we'd always be afraid. Emptiness just points out that all of our experience is constantly changing and has no fixed quality. So all the suffering we experience isn't permanent, even though it sometimes feels like it's permanent, especially if you're in a point in your life where there's a lot of anxiety or even depression. Often these moods feel like they're permanent, right? Like sometimes we feel I've been depressed. It feels like I've been depressed for months. It feels like we've been anxious for a whole year. But actually, if we observe closely, from moment to moment, our state of mind is changing. The thoughts are changing and the feelings are changing. So that's why they're empty. They're empty of any fixed nature. So if they're empty, that means that they can pass. If suffering couldn't pass, if we couldn't resolve suffering, then there would actually be no point in practicing Buddhism. But the point of Buddhist practice is that we know that we're suffering, but we also know that suffering is empty. It's not a permanent quality of our human nature. So that's what it means to be pure. Our nature is pure. It means that no matter how much we suffer, all of it is empty. So it can be resolved, even to the point where we don't experience any suffering, which is the ideal of Buddhism, to completely resolve suffering and have a mind that's very clear, clear of what's happening, but unmoved or undisturbed. So, in the Chan tradition, this is the meaning of purity. This is not only Chan, this is Mahayana Buddhism. This is the meaning of our nature being pure. It's essentially that our mind cannot be permanently soiled. Our mind can't be permanently damaged by anger, by fear, by craving, by all of that. It just often seems that it's part of us. It seems that, oh, I'm just an angry person, or so and so is just an angry person. It seems like it's part of their personality, but really, if we look closely, it's not. It's just a repeating pattern. They're pure. You could think about a person who's uh, you're really having difficulty with, and it feels like they're just permanently going to be our enemy. If we remind ourselves that they are also pure, that the anger that they show will pass. And if we are more skillful, if we are less conflicted, then we can actually communicate more skillfully and resolve the suffering of both of us. So each one of us has this pure nature. It can't be permanently damaged. And this is based on the emptiness. Everything is changing and dependent on conditions. So, in that sense, it's very positive, right? Emptiness is not negative. It's affirming that suffering can be resolved, conflicts can be resolved. What's unique about the Chan tradition is that when we have awareness of our attachments, with awareness, we can let them go. So if we're in a conflict because we like something so much, we're just not willing to budge. It's got to be this way. And we're not willing to accommodate or to be flexible. Then then we'll be stuck. But if we have awareness of our attachment to what we like, and if we're willing to let that go, we can become accommodating and flexible in our way of communication. So, what's unique to Chan and Zen is sudden awakening, which means the moment that we can be clearly aware of our attachments and how that makes us suffer, in that very moment, we can let them go. In the very moment of being aware, we can let go and be free and experience that our nature is pure. Maybe you've experienced a little bit of that, being in an argument, and you finally realize that holding on to your opinion is just not going to work. So they say, "Okay, fine. Let's uh let's find a way to compromise." And all of a sudden, we feel so much better and so much more relaxed and at ease, right? It's not enlightenment necessarily, but we feel a lot better and we've relieved a lot of our agitation and irritation just with that level of awareness. So this teaching reminds us that all of us, at our nature, the mind is pure, and as long as we are aware, as long as we use some method to become aware of our attachments, we can let them go and experience purity and freedom of mind. It doesn't mean we become a pushover, though. It doesn't mean we just give up and let people walk all over us. We still can um, be assertive, but we're responding and we're assertive from a place of freedom, not a place of conflict. So, this sudden insight into our nature is that's the potential that we all have. And that's the unique quality of Chan Buddhism. Sudden insight into our nature brings sudden freedom. And what's interesting is that when we have that freedom, we can communicate so much more skillfully and freely. But Chan also points out that this is not necessarily easy. It doesn't mean that if we're suffering a lot and we have a lot of strong habits, we can just snap our fingers and be free. It doesn't say that. It says we also need a foundation of gradual practice. We also need to work on ourselves. What do we establish this foundation on? Well, this is the basic practices of Buddhism, what's called the three studies: discipline, stability or concentration, and wisdom. The Chinese is 戒定慧, right? This is the three core aspects of all Buddhist practice in all traditions. If we don't practice day to day, gradually working on ourselves, sudden enlightenment is not likely going to happen. But if we do, if we practice daily, moment to moment, um, discipline, referring to having behavior that's in line with freedom, that's in line with wisdom, meditation practice and mindful living that's stabilizing our mind and our emotions, and also having a clear conceptual map of the practice. If we do this day after day, then sudden insight is more possible. And even if we don't have this thorough insight into emptiness, we're still a lot more free and a lot more skillful in our way of communication. What does Chan Buddhism say about communication? Talks a lot about sudden enlightenment, sudden insight, and our nature being pure. But what does it say about communication? Actually, it doesn't say much at all. What's unique about the Chan tradition is that it doesn't tell us how to be. It doesn't tell us how to act or how to speak in detail. It doesn't say you should speak like this, you should do this, and spell everything out for us. Um, it actually tells us how to be wise. If we can see our nature, we have insight into our nature being pure and our mind is free, that's wisdom. So Chan, the emphasis is on helping us to be wise. If we can be wise, then we just know what to say. We know what to say and we know what to do. So if I just spoke from the Chan tradition on the Dharma of communication, we'd finish right here. 24 minutes, the talk is over. Because really, if we base our understanding of communication on the Chan records, the records of the Chan and Zen masters, it may seem very strange. Like all these people have, I don't know, communication problems or something. Some of them are shouting at their students. Some of them are just saying random things that seem not to make sense. These somewhat nonsensical, irrational behavior and speech in the Chan records, it's not some sort of instruction manual that we should try to imitate and replicate. It's actually just stories of how these teachers used wisdom, just their natural reaction to their students, which helped their students see their own nature. It's not a standard for behavior. If it was, we'd all become very strange people because those Chan stories are very special and sometimes very strange if we look at them without uh, uh, understanding the whole context. So, um, it's important to understand that. Chan is pointing out the principle of how to be wise. If we have wisdom, we just know what to say, we know what to do. So we can't exactly rely on the Chan tradition alone if we want to understand how Buddhism looks at communication. So today I hope to speak more about the basic teachings of Buddhism on speech and communication. Are you interested in that?